Welcome everybody to today's Rex Talks. Today, in our second Rex Talks, we are going to be analyzing the Rex stakes, Rex staking strategies, how to max out on Rex, how to use the protocol in the best way. And for this, I am here for you. I'm Thomas, the founder of Rex. And with me, there is Dr. Kelly Snook. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Thomas.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Ready to talk about Rex?
Yes, always.
Always. Awesome. And yeah, we're going to have a conversation today, some Rex talks. We will also share our screens, or especially Kelly will share her screen. So you can see how staking works in Rex and how to utilize that for achieving your goals that you have, long term, short term, whatever. And we're going to explore the protocol and the staking strategies a little bit with you. And so, yeah, I would be ready to go. So at first, I would say let's start with what is Rex, but only in a few sentences. I think when you are watching this video right now, you are you have been on the Rex website already, which is in the screen right now. Actually, we're in the auction phase of 222 days. As you can see, there are 135 days left of daily auctions, which is mainly the time in which we mint most of the tokens to people who participate in the auctions. So that's one of the ways you can get Rex tokens, participate in the auctions, and then you can stake your Rex. And the other way would be to just buy Rex on PancakeSwap. Yeah, absolutely. That's the two ways. So we can see here PooCoin, for example. That's one of the websites that you can use to buy the Rex token. You can use PancakeSwap.finance. Or what is even more interesting maybe is indeed, this is PancakeSwap Finance. You just go to trade and swap. Then you choose your tokens. Here you can see BNB versus so yeah, so we have BUSD on top. You can put some dollars in there when you connect your wallet. And you can swap that basically to Rex tokens. So you just connect your wallet, like shown in the video right here.
Yeah, there we go.
To show all your $40,000.
$40, Thomas. Let's be real.
Just kidding. I know you prepared this wallet and sent all the other $39,000 away.
Gosh, I wish. I wish.
Yeah, but this is just to show how to swap USD tokens for Rex tokens. You just put a number in there and then you hit the swap button and just swap it. And then you're going to have liquid Rex in your wallet directly. Those liquid Rex in your wallet may as well be used for staking. You could use them to create some sort of staking ladder, like to create multiple stakes that end in the future, like every month, or even every week, or even every day. Whatever you like to do with that, you can do that in the Rex app that we will show.
Wait, before we do that, I just wanted to say that for the first time you go to PancakeSwap, you may not have PancakeSwap may not know this token. So if you need to add this token manually, you can just paste the token address here. All the token addresses can be found on the Rex app on the dashboard. Down here, you have all of the different token addresses. So you'll just want to put in the token address for Rex, which ends in 7E54, and you just put that into your PancakeSwap address, paste address field there, and then it will come up with the correct token to swap. So I just wanted to say that because sometimes people are like, oh, I can't buy it because it's not there. So that's how you do that.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, thank you for saying that. That is very important how to do that. Yeah. I think there are a lot of people who are very new to crypto, and all those details are very precious indeed.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Wow.
yeah,
So that just got me 376,111 REX if I go to the staking page on app.rex.io. So now I have um, I have this REX that I can stake. So Thomas, maybe you could just for a second explain exactly what a stake is.
a stake is a method to lock up your tokens, which actively burns those tokens, so they are not available in your wallet any longer. They are technically burned. Um, and the smart contract, where you do this transaction of staking, where you create your stake, basically saves the number of REX that you had, which is called your principal. And it also wants some numbers from you. For example, the duration of your stake. You can say, I want to stake this for 7 days, which is the minimum, or for even up to 10 years, which is the maximum duration of your stake. And the longer your stake is, the higher your rewards will be per day. Or you might say your APR, or yeah. So when you create the stake, you tell the smart contract via this website that we have seen how long you want to stake it, and then you also can give it a name. So maybe you want to stake something for buying a car in 4 years. So you just make a stake with an amount of tokens, and for like 4 years, and you just name it for the car. And then there are some other cool things that you could do. You can make it irrevocable when you're absolutely sure that you don't need the money before that. Um, then you will get, you can make it irrevocable. This means you cannot withdraw staking rewards that the stake earns before maturity. You can't do that. That means irrevocable. And for this, more commitment, it earns you more staking rewards. So the APR will be higher. You will get more shares. We will talk about shares in a second. When you make it irrevocable, it's more of a commitment if you make it irrevocable, so it gets you more shares and thus more rewards. And the other thing is what you can do to boost your stake to get even more shares and higher APR is to get a TREX. This is the other thing that you can make, and you can see that on the website. Um, it's those factors what will be calculated as the shares that will be in your stake. It's the TREX, you have it or not, you make the stake irrevocable or not, and then the duration of your stake. Those are the main factors how your APR is being calculated each day, what your APR will be.
So we can now pretend that we've just bought a T-Rex.
Okay, what is a stake? A stake is basically the locking up of your tokens. And this technically burns your tokens and gives you shares instead. And the number of shares is the relevant number for determining your APR, your APY, like the rewards that the stake will earn you. So some factors that you see on the website right here are important when creating a stake. At first, it's the duration. The longer you stake, the more shares you will get. There's a factor in it. So when you do the minimum duration of 7 days, you can see that in this chart, like 7 days, it gets you almost no bonus shares on top. But when you do it for like 10 years or 5 years already, it gets you a lot of bonus shares. And those shares will earn you more REX rewards, right? So the duration that you choose, as we've just seen, it's very well explained in the paper. And the minimum duration is like 7 days, and the maximum duration is 10 years. So you have to decide in terms of strategy, will it be like a short stake for maybe a few months, or well, maybe for a year, or maybe you just want to buy a car in like 3 years, then you can put the name of the stake and the staking duration in there. And also you can determine if a stake is irrevocable or not, which is the checkbox that we see right there. And when checking the checkbox, you will get a bonus of 25% more shares in your stake. So it earns you more rewards. When creating a stake irrevocable, this also means that you are not able to withdraw those staking rewards while the stake is active. So you really have to wait until the stake ends, and then you get your principal, your staked REX amount, plus the rewards back, but not before that. So only check this irrevocable stake checkbox when you're really sure that you will um, be able to really wait until the stake gets mature, and you can officially like regularly close the stake, and you get your principal back that you staked plus the rewards. So irrevocable stake is very interesting when you have a certain goal to achieve in maybe 2 years, and it's REX tokens that you absolutely don't need. You just lock them up for, in this example, 730 days, which is 2 years, and it's for your car, so you can remind yourself of what it was for. And then another thing is to boost your shares that you get for a stake is if you have a TREX or not. In this example, there is a TREX in the wallet. We can see that right there. And this also gives you another 25% more shares. So if you want to max out on staking and get the best possible APR, then you would want to have a TREX. You can buy that in the dashboard, and you will want to make your stake irrevocable. This is how it works. You just make a stake and you get those shares, and the number of shares that you get depends on whether or not you have a TREX, whether or not you create your stake irrevocable, the duration of the stake. Those factors go in there. We could also mention that the share price plays a part. The share price will always be rising, albeit fairly slowly, of course. It will rise slowly. It will probably do something like a 2x in 2 years or something like that. But still, the earlier you stake, the more shares you will receive, because when the share price rises over time, you will always receive a little bit a little bit less shares for your stakes. So earlier is a little bit better than later. Okay, and what we can see right there is the calculator.rex.io, which is a little tool that Yonko has built for calculating rewards that you can expect from your stake. This is a very cool tool to play around with the numbers, to play around with future price, with the share price, with the durations. When you move those things, what is it called, Kelly?
Sliders. Sliders.
Yes, absolutely. When you move the sliders, you can see how your numbers will change. And this is maybe interesting for you to figure out a strategy as well. Yeah, Kelly, maybe you want to say some words about the staking calculator. You used it already. Do you think it's good? How does it help you to calculate something?
Yeah. So, the main thing that I was interested in when I'm trying to figure out my own staking strategies is a couple really important numbers. The first number that's really important for me is this yearly APR, and I think that was one of the reasons, the main motivators for making this calculator, uh, that why Yonko made it is because people were wanting to know, okay, but what are the rewards and what will I be set to earn? And so you can really get a sense for um, how your various choices affect that APR, and then you can, you know, put that into your own calculations for timing and how long you want to stake for, and um, and really whether or not you want to make that irrevocable and what your different choices are. So we'll get into that later. I can show you the little calculator that I built that uses the information that you can get from this calculator to go more in depth in terms of planning and strategizing. But you can enter in, I don't usually use this estimated price at maturity because it then also affects your input price. So I put these numbers into my own calculator just to understand like how much I'm going to earn in various situations, given what I put in, and what my profit might be in what amount of time. But this is extremely useful and easy and fast way to using the current share price and the current REX price to just determine where we are. Of course, these numbers may change as the staked amount overall changes, and so there are some variables here that are unknowns, kind of, but it's at least a place to start in calculating how your REX stakes might perform over the next years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very useful tool. Yeah, absolutely. And you just mentioned that you built another calculator yourself. Are you willing to share that, or?
Yeah, I was thinking we might ease into that though, because it's a bit detailed. It's it's a tool that I built to really to see over time, to be able to just see in detail over time how different parameters affect what's withdrawable and the overall earnings of the stake. But maybe we need to speak about a few other basic concepts first before I can talk about this, because I think it might be a bit much if somebody's coming into this not quite with their minds not quite yet wrapped around staking. We might want to talk about some of these other options on the staking website first, like right, yeah.
Here we have the create a new stake section where you can create a single stake. There are those question mark things that you can also hit if you have any questions, and there are some explanations in there with what we just said. Just to remind yourself, you could also, as well, of course, anytime read the paper or watch all of the great videos that we have right there. For example, Kelly did a whole white paper walkthrough on video with examples that will help you understand how the staking mechanisms work. And there's not too much strategy in it, so we will skip that for a second. But you feel invited to watch those videos with Kelly. They're really exciting and really good and really detailed. If you want to get familiar with Rex, you will find those videos linked right on top of the Rex paper, which is rex.io/paper. Okay, so let's scroll down a little bit. Yeah. So what we have right here in this section is the possibility to create multiple stakes in a single transaction. This could be a ladder of stakes, like multiple stakes that will end like every month or every week or every year. You can just type the numbers in there and it will create multiple stakes for you as a ladder. Or you can do it bulk, which means that a number of the same sized and duration stakes will be created for you. And then you can just create all of them in a single transaction. And this is amazing because it saves you a lot of time and even transaction costs. So this is a very comfortable situation right here. So when you found a staking strategy for yourself that fits your needs, you can just do those things. If that involves a staking ladder, you can just create yourself a ladder in a minute. In a minute, and we've checked that when you create 20 stakes in this bulk situation or in this ladder situation, 20 stakes, creating them will cost around $4. So that's quite nothing. If you compare that to what it costs to create a single stake on an Ethereum staking token, that costs a lot more. So 20 stakes, just create a ladder is like $4 or something. So this section of creating multiple stakes is really interesting and saves you really a lot of time. Um, I, I'm, I think it's a very good invention that we did there in Rex. Do you use that, Kelly? What do you think?
I did experiment with it, but, I have to say that I've kind of taken to just creating only 10-year revocable stakes, which I'm happy to discuss, later, but I just found that, you can see here even, and we it might be nice to explain this right now. What is the difference between bulk and ladder? Let's just look at the difference, but you can see even just, if you have the bulk button, uh, ticked, what that's doing is it's creating 4 stakes identical with each other, so it's splitting this amount here into 4 chunks, and it's making 4 stakes of 376 divided by 4 each, and then it's all of those stakes will end in 182 days from now, and so it wouldn't be called monthly. In that case, we'd call that as, let's see, let's just say if we did it for a year, or, let's do a month. Sorry, let's do a 30-day. So all 4 stakes would end in 30 days. So, 4 30-day stakes. So that's what bulk is. 4 4 stakes of equal duration, 30 days in this case. Uh, well, we would make them, maybe we could make them irrevocable, so we get as many, shares as possible. So you can see there's not much bonus for duration because 1 month isn't very long, and the total amount of shares that you get, and that's, each one would be this amount divided by 4. So the total amount of shares you get is 5.7 million shares in this bulk scenario. So that would be like if you went up here and you just put 25% and you made that for 30 days, and then you did that 4 times irrevocably. That should be identical number of shares. And you can see that that is the case, that this is a quarter of this. If you wanted instead to do a ladder, which is also very interesting, um, you can actually see, I'm going to click on ladder and immediately we'll see the number of shares go up and we'll explain why. So what does the ladder do? What the ladder does is instead of making 4 stakes of identical length, it makes the first stake 30 days, and now we're going to call this one monthly. It makes one stake that's 30 days long, and then it makes a second stake that's 60 days long, and a third stake that's 90 days long, and a fourth stake that's 120 days long. And so because there's stakes that are slightly longer in there, that's why the amount of shares goes up, because you have one stake that's essentially 4 times as long as the initial one. It doesn't go up by much because it's still really not very long in the staking world. The max stake duration is 10 years, so even 4 months isn't very long in that curve. And the real bonus for time, as you can see in the paper, comes later on in longer durations. It's quite a flat curve in the beginning. So, 4 months isn't that much better than 1 month. It is better though. So you can see that it's better just in the number of shares. You can see here 5.7 million and then 5.74 million if you do the latter. So Thomas, you asked me why I don't do this, and it's because, and I'll show you the numbers in more detail later, but it's because the bonus that you get from the longest duration is so much greater. The amount of the amount of shares you get, and therefore your APY and the longest stakes is so much higher that actually and if you make it revocable, so it's not irrevocable. If it's revocable, that means you can withdraw the interest at any time. Then that actually can set you up for compounding your stakes earlier and overall getting a lot more gains out of the same amount of initial investment. So that's why I do that, Thomas, and I'm happy to go into detail on that later. But I do think it's actually for people that that want to stake it and forget it. It's an amazing compromise in a way, or it's an amazing convenience, I guess, just to be able to build a ladder, not think about it, not worry about it, make it irrevocable, and then every 30 days go in and collect your earnings. That's a really, really cool thing. And for people who are looking to invest their money without having to spend a lot of time, tending to their stakes, it's an excellent option.
So you would go for, actually you wouldn't, but you could create a ladder that has a stake ending monthly for years to come. And when I understand that right, then the longer the stake, I mean, you create a ladder, so there's a lot of stakes you're creating right there. And the longer the stakes, when they end, the more shares it will have had in it. So it, like you get more REX from every new ending stake every month, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you see, if I made 16 of them of the same duration, so the longest one is much longer, you can see the number of shares went up even more.
Yes. That's interesting. Okay, perfect. And then in the stakes, are there any stakes in that active staking section at the bottom of the page?
Yeah, I've got some stakes in here that I made that I
Mhm.
transferred in here,
Maybe you can
just so we could talk
explain
about them.
quite
Yeah.
quickly what we see there. Yeah.
Yeah. I just to finish up that comparison that I was talking to you about before, the reason why I always have these intentions to experiment with ladders, and then I see, like, for example, if I take this amount of money and I make 16, so, you know, lots of years of staking, I mean, I could do, um let's say if I did 10 and it was just ending yearly, can I do that? No, it doesn't, 6 months. So I'd need to do 20. So if I had a yearly staking ladder with this amount of money, the amount of shares I would get for that is 11 million shares, which is and if they were all irrevocable. So the maximum number of shares I could get out of this investment would be 11 million. But if I look at the 10-year irrevocable, it's 17 million shares.
Yeah.
So it always feels to me like I want to do the ladders, but then the benefit of the number of shares for the longer revocable stakes is so much greater. Um, and I wasn't sure about that until I built my calculator, and now I'm pretty sure about it. But we can look at it again more in detail.
The next question in this situation would be, um, so would it be a difference if you then create like one fat stake with all of the REX that you have there liquid, or is it as rewarding when you create a bulk stake and divide those into 20? I'm
Well,
thinking
bulk stake is less. Oh,
bigger.
you mean bulk stake of a maximum duration? You mean?
Yes,
So let's just.
that
I
you
don't
don't.
know if I can do it. Can I do that? Hang on. 10 years.
I was thinking about bigger pays better. This doesn't exist,
Oh.
so
Um.
we could as
No,
well.
it's exactly the same, Thomas. If you've got like 20
Yeah.
stakes, bulk stakes of the same duration, it's this exact same number of shares.
Yes, just wanted to point that out, that if
Yeah.
people want to, if you have 1 million REX tokens and you want to stake them for 10 years, It's the same amount of shares that you will receive in one fat stake or in 10 smaller
or
stakes.
20, yeah.
Up. It's quite the same. So you could as well use a bulk staking function there. This
Yep.
gives you more flexibility in REX because you
Mm-hmm.
can then, of course, later sell some of your stakes if you want to in
Mm-hmm.
the decentralized exchange for the stakes that you can see on the left side of the page. And there's the dashboard and so on, and there's the DEX, which will open on REX Day 111. Yeah, so you will be able to offer your stakes for sale there, and like an eBay for for stakes, right? You can put a price, and yeah, so if you ever need to offer a stake, you can do that right there. So you might want to split your stakes, um, even especially when you want to go long term. Not create one fat stake would be my idea, but create a bulk of many same duration, very long stakes, for example, irrevocable or not. Um, by the way, Kelly, did you say you would go with those very long 10-year stakes, revocable or irrevocable?
Revocable. Yeah,
Yes.
revocable. Yeah, because within a couple of years, a little more than 2 years, you can start compounding those stakes.
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on the share price, but definitely in 5 years, you can compound and pull some profits, and then restake with the same amount of shares, um, which I can show in the calculator.
Okay. To understand that, to do some easy math, um, when you get like a certain amount of shares, and so that means you will have an APR of, let's say, 50%, then you can
Mhm.
do the math when you get like the same amount that of REX that you just staked back as rewards, so you can stake that again, right? That's the compounding you're talking about, right?
Yes, it needs to be a bit more though because, the share price will have gone up as you were discussing.
Hmm.
So, that's why I built the calculator to calculate the share price going up, and then how much you would need how much yeah, how much past 100% you'd need to go in order to be able to pull some profits and restake, the same amount of shares. So, it's gonna be more REX when you restake because the share price will have gone up. So, yeah, we can definitely discuss that. Did you wanna talk about these stakes first, or do you wanna talk about that now?
Um, Maybe you want to explain the active stakes that we see there. What
Sure, yeah. So, as I was saying, I like to stake 10-year revocable. So you can see and then I started doing this thing where, um, I would, put in the title how much that stake cost me at the time. So since I made these stakes, the price has gone down a bit. So you can see that this stake that I started with, $6.75 it cost me to make this stake, now is a little bit lower at 6.64 BUSD. But I made this stake on September 26th, so I guess that was yesterday I made it because today is the first day. This is a 10-year stake with a TREX, and so far it hasn't earned any interest, so there's nothing here to show us what APR it's getting. But typically, and you can actually see that also in Yonko's calculator. You can see that a stake of maximum duration that's made. Not irrevocably, but is made with a TREX will get usually between 46 and 47% APR so far. That's what the APR has been. So in my stakes, we see that that's the case. It's a little bit higher than 46, but this one I made on September 14th. The
Yeah.
initial principal I put in was about 158,000 REX. So usually what happens is if I go in auction or somebody uses my referral address, I get a little bit of liquid REX. And so whatever liquid REX comes in, I just stake that for 10 years revocably. and then I give it a very uncreative name. If it's a 10-year stake, I just call it long usually. So I have a lot of stakes called long. But then I started also putting the value of that stake at the time of staking, just so I could go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to say that in the stake, in the third one, you can see the progress of days is 0 because you made it yesterday. So like it starts today, so it hasn't have a full day, so there is no rewards in it right now.
Yeah.
And the second one, the one that's named long,
Mm-hmm.
it shows quite an incredibly APR of this, what you just explained, 47%. That's quite high. What would happen if, for example, REX gets listed on centralized exchanges in the future at some point, and people go buy REX tokens on centralized exchanges and let them just be there and don't withdraw from the exchange into their own wallet and stake it like you just did, but let it just be there. And let's just assume people do that in the future. What will happen to your APY? Will it affect the APY or will it stay the same?
Well, that's a good question. I'd love to hear your answer, but I'm guessing that it would make the APY go up because that would mean that all the inflation that's happening is being split between those who have stakes, and it's not being distributed to those people who are holding tokens that are outside of the staking protocol. So I would imagine that that this APY would go up if the percentage of tokens that are staked goes down.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what's going to happen. When less people stake, I think that's always interesting in those staking models. When less people stake, and that will be probably the case in the future. You can see that in other well-known staking tokens that.
Speaking of which, I have these data up here just because I've been using it just to think about this.
Okay,
Somebody made a really nice
see right there is
hex.
a random example of a staking token.
Random, yes.
And yeah, you can really say that Rex owns some. It's quite similar what happens right there. We also have those shares. So when you stake, you get shares instead. In Hex, they call that the T shares, which is basically an abbreviation for a trillion shares. In Rex, it's good to have 1,000,000 shares already. You don't need to have a trillion. But it's like the same mechanics. And you can see the staking participation in this chart and the maximum APY. So what we can see here is that the staking percentage in Hex went down over time. Right in the beginning, a lot of people have been staking, then it went down to like 10%. So that means that the people who are staking get like 10x the average APY that is programmed in the protocol, which in Rex means that in Rex it's currently around, let's say 50%, something between 40 and 60, I guess. So let's call it 50% in Rex right now. So we are quite there in the line, and it will go down in the future. So the people who will be staking will earn very high APRs. We will be able to see that then. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that the website, the Rex website, shows you based on the data of the already passed days, the rewards that you earned per day, because of course the website knows how many shares there have been every day and how many shares you owned in your stakes. So you can easily, so the website will definitely show you the exact amount of Rex that you will get when you end your stake, or like the rewards that you have earned already, and display you the APR. So this is not an arbitrary number that you see in your stakes in the staking section when you scroll down to your stakes, but it's really the actual number of Rex tokens as rewards that it already earned you, and that is the precise APY APR that you have. That's the actual number.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't exactly know what's going to happen to that APR. So in my calculator, I made it a variable that you can. There's an APR appreciation. Um,
What is
uh, what's that?
what is that? An APR?
That's so like so you can just see what would happen if the APR went up or if the APR went down, like what would happen to your investment. So it's a very simple model of just like a linear thing. Like, so let's say the APR goes up by some percentage every day, or down by some percentage every day. So that's that. When I come to talk about the calculator, that's what that is allowing for. Just in case the APR does. So incidentally, what you see in this hex uh, plot is here, this big spike here is at the end of auctions. So in hex, it was a year of auctions. And so things go a little haywire temporarily around that time because everyone's initial stakes are ending and people are selling and people are buying. And it's going to be quite maybe chaotic for a day or two or three or something like that around that time. But you can see what Thomas was talking about here as probably this thing here. I don't know what that was, but I suspect that was like a big marketing push, or maybe it was like um, maybe it got listed, maybe Hex got listed on some big exchange, or something happened that caused a lot of people to buy. Like that's what you were talking about, right, Thomas? Like when if there are a lot more holders, so the percentage of people staking goes down, then the APY might go up. There's
Yes.
probably these different phases that will behave differently in time, and then things will stabilize probably quite a bit after the auctions are over. But I just put that in my calculator so that there is a column that actually has the APR, um, yeah, APR appreciation in there. Right now, in the way that I've calculated it, I'm just to get very basic idea of how things might perform. I'm just assuming that it's going to stay flat at that same amount. Um, but yeah, it could go up. I guess it could also go down. It could go down. How could it go down? What could happen so that the APR would go down, Thomas?
If everybody staked,
If everyone staked, yeah, and more people staked, and then nobody was just buying and holding tokens. Um,
and if
Another thing that was happening here is that the OA, Richard Hart, was buying up tokens and then just not staking them, right? So during this period, he
that
was
might,
buying, and then
but that's
that
absolute speculation. I know that the first thing that you just mentioned on the very top left, when it went down the first time so hard, Hex has been indeed listed the first time.
right.
I think it was around that time. It was during the auction phase already as well. Yeah. So yeah, but that's speculation. I think what's important to see here is that when less people stake, the people who are staking get higher APRs
Mhm.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
So and another fun fact: if everybody would be staking, there would be no liquid tokens, no circulating supply, which would result in a market cap of zero. Right. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why is that why you have the different market cap numbers here in the statistics?
Yes, because you can ask the REX smart contracts for the total supply, which is giving back the number of the circulating supply. But
Mhm.
if you have REX tokens and you stake them, they are in a way still there. Of course, they are locked up, but basically it was money before and it is money waiting for you. So you could also say that this should be counted to the circulating supply. And of course, in crypto, there is a name for that. For this locked value, it's the total value locked, the TVL. It's a term that we use in crypto, right? The total value locked. And so when you add those things up, the circulating supply that has a value, and the locked up values, then we speak of the allocated supply, which is
Mhm.
if all the tokens that are as well staked would also be circulating, that's the allocated supply. Yeah, it's basically, yeah, that's interesting as well. I think the
Yeah.
allocated supply is a better number than what they do on the, let's say, CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko. When you look up the numbers and you see the market cap, and then you think that's not true. That's not the market cap, right? It must be more because they don't count in all the locked up tokens. They
Yeah.
could easily ask the smart contract for this number because it's programmed in there. You can just ask not for a total supply, but for allocated supply. It's
Yeah.
such an easy function, but they don't do that. They are not
No.
to change those things. So
Yeah.
that's why we put it on the website to give you a better feeling what's really happening right there.
That's great. That's good to know. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we should probably just say that in this calculator, we don't actually know what the percentage staking is going to be in the future. So whatever number is here is the estimate based on the current values, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. um, just to finish off the stakes that I had here as examples. The last one. So this one is the middle one is very typical of the stakes that I tend to make, which is the 10-year revocable ones. And then, but I did also, after you and I had that little exchange on an AMA recently, where you were, you reminded me that something that I hadn't been remembering, I'd forgotten since reading the white paper, which is that when you want to put a stake onto the DEX, you can't offer a stake unless 10% of its duration has already passed. And so I had been making all of these 10-year revocable stakes thinking, oh, these will be great on the DEX because people want revocable stakes and they'll be earning a lot of interest and they'll have a high APR and they'll be very valuable. And then I had forgotten that on day 111, when the stake DEX opens, that's not 10% of 3653. So I'll have to wait a while to put those stakes on the staking DEX. So I then started making some of my stakes just long enough that when the DEX opens, then I can offer them on the DEX just for fun because I thought I want to play around with that staking DEX. One of the things I wanted to talk to you today about is to see if you had if you could think of any motivation to actually sell other than desperation. So let's assume I'm not desperate for money and I would just want to put this stake up on the DEX. Um, why would I do that right now, given that the value? So I paid $40 for this stake. Um, I made it so that I could put it on the DEX right when the DEX opens. But right now, that stake is only worth 27.8 BUSD because the price of REX has gone down. It is a revocable stake, but let's say if I were going to offer this stake on the DEX, Thomas, how are we going to, like, how is it going to work? How are we going to decide what we're asking for a stake? Do we ask a certain amount? Is it just people offer and then we can accept or reject an offer? And why would I put this on the DEX right now? What would it get me that just holding on to this stake myself wouldn't get me?
Desperation is a very good example. So when you really need money and you're, yeah, it's just the flexibility that you may want to have. You are able to offer any stake that you have as long as it has passed 10% of its duration. That's correct. But whether it's from your auctions, irrevocable, revocable, how long ever, but it doesn't matter. You can offer any stake there for any price that you want to have. So I think some people will just offer stakes to see whether it works or not, or
I see.
whether they can, like for experimental things, and yeah, for just to play around with it a little bit, or maybe yeah, do some calculations. Imagine you see like 100 stakes offered there, or maybe 10, I don't know, and you see you can compare those things and those stakes by the numbers in the offer. You will be able to see um, the shares per dollar, because obviously the person who's offering the stakes sets a price. So
Mm-hmm.
the offer will show you the number of shares that are in it, and the number of REX and rewards earned, and all of those things. And you will be able to see all those things and put that in relation to the price of it. So you can really see what is the best price in terms of where do I get the most shares that I can buy right now for a certain amount of dollars, like shares per dollar. You can sort the stakes in the DEX in this regards, and then choose
Mm-hmm.
the most shares per dollar, and you just buy those stakes. You could even trade on it if you have a lot of money, and you don't want to buy the tokens or just explore this space, because obviously um, the most mm, the main reason for the people why to sell a stake on a DEX is probably desperation, or maybe it's experimental as well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Check whether they can get a certain amount of money. Yeah, but I mean, it's easy for the people to see how much a stake is really worth, right? There could be some calculations that you could do, and maybe there will be a calculator on that website, on the DEX in the future.
Mm-hmm.
When we see it's useful, we will put a calculator in there so people could do their math and consider their um, whether it's a good price or not. So you have to somehow value those stakes, right? Um, yes,
Yeah.
because it's obviously locked money. And for example, your stakes, they have a T-Rex in it. So they earn more
Mm-hmm.
rewards than others. So
Yeah.
maybe you don't want to stake yourself. Maybe you just want to buy a stake with a T-Rex,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for example. And then you can compare those stakes. And when you use the DEX as a buyer, you're probably doing some of the sellers who are offering their stakes a favor, because obviously they don't want to do that for fun. They need to sell something. So yeah, before you go buy tokens and stake them yourselves, or you might consider buying a stake on the DEX. But as this has not been done before in other protocols, I think we're going to wait and see how it all plays out. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. What I've been thinking about this a lot, and I keep getting myself in a knot. But it kind of seems like right now, because of the price, because of this requirement that 10% of the staking duration must have passed, and because the price has been going down so much, the longer, more valuable stakes that have been made that would qualify to go up on the DEX right now cost those people a lot more money to make. So um, they're not likely to be less expensive when somebody's coming in on to buy the stakes. It kind of seems to me like right now, or at least on day 111 when the stake DEX opens, unless something happens with the price and it goes way up again, then it seems like it would be more beneficial from a cost perspective, even considering the T-Rex right now, given how much the price has fallen, for someone to just make the steak themselves rather than buy the steak. I just don't see right now the price uh, action working in favor of buying and selling stakes on the stake decks. But I can see in the future, when price is appreciating, that's when the decks will really shine, because people can sell their stakes for much, much more than it cost them to make them.
Yes.
If they bought their if so so for example, people who are buying and staking right now, in 100 more days from now, or 200 days from now, or a year from now, that stake DEX is going to be extremely lucrative for all of the stakes that people are buying and making right now, because the price is so low and the price will be likely much higher in the future. So that's when I think the stake DEX is going to shine. I think
Mm.
I'm a little I'm very curious to see what happens when it opens, because it's going to be mostly like novelty and
Yeah.
curiosity based right now than like financially motivated,
Yeah.
because I can't see any financial motivation right now to either buy or sell on the DEX, other than just because we can and because it's interesting and it's kind of cool. Um, and maybe for really shorter duration stakes, or as you said, like maybe really short duration stakes that were just made, like the one I have here, that was made with a TREX. Like there might be some like threshold where it's actually worth it for somebody to buy it rather than to make the stake themselves if they don't want to buy a TREX, for example.
Yes. Um, yeah, maybe we should also mention that we all have, not all of us, but many of us have already used the DEX when we tested the protocol on the testnet. And
Yes.
there were some stakes to buy and to sell, and we could see that it all works very well. That's what I thought. And I found it very interesting in the first place. Yeah, but we will see how it all plays out in terms of strategy and maybe price. Will that influence the price? And because when you can buy a stake, you don't have to buy the tokens. So that's kind of price neutral when you just sell and buy stakes. Um, that's what I think. Because imagine you have tokens and you need money. What do? You could sell your stake. You could end your stake and sell your tokens then, or you could just sell the whole stake, which is neutral. And the other guy
Mhm.
who wants the tokens has to buy them, but he could as well buy a stake, which is neutral. So I think the DEX as a whole is maybe price neutral. What do you think?
I think that's right. I think that's right. I think we might see, if there's desperation on both sides, we might see people buying stakes, and if they're revocable, then just ending them and selling them. We might see that. I don't know. It may not make, also again, financial sense to do that right now. We could see that in the future though. We might see people buying stakes just to sell the tokens. Um, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to see.
Anyways, yeah, what we wanted is to have a place with a decentralized exchange for the stakes, which just brings more flexibility to the people, because all the staking and locking up of tokens is, of course, very good to lock up tokens. So then maybe there is less circulating supply, and yeah, that is maybe good for the price and all the mechanics that we have in those staking tokens. But being locked up is sometimes just too hard for the people. I mean, just to have the option that you can withdraw your staking rewards while the stake is active and not even mature, and you can still withdraw your staking rewards. I just think this is brilliant for itself. But having the DEX is really cool because you can just trade
Sell the whole thing. Yeah.
sell the whole thing. Yeah, right, absolutely. And I think it's good to have that as an option. You don't have to use that, right? But it's an option if you need to. Yeah, so what we wanted to make is this decentralized exchange and basically make it for free. So what we did there in terms of tokenomics is that you can use it for free as a seller and as a buyer. Um, Especially as a seller, it's always free. But when you want to buy a token, you have to you have to calculate a fee of 2% of the price of the stake on top. That's the fee you have to pay, unless you
Mhm.
have an MREX Boost token. Then it's totally free for you. So if you want to go there and maybe buy and sell some stakes, like trade some stakes, you might want to get an MREX token, because then you don't pay any fees. So there's an option to make it fee-less for you. You just need to hold an MREX token in your wallet, which is actually like, I think it's $40 or something. So
Yeah. MRXs are cheap right now.
yes, so you could easily calculate when this DEX opens and the people start trading, they might want to have MREX tokens. So and there's just a supply of 10,000s. So if like a 10,000 people would use this protocol and everybody wants an MREX, then maybe the price would go up. But still, if you have an MREX, the trading is free for you, and that's what we wanted to make there. Yes. So
Cool.
okay, that's the DEX part.
That's the
Um,
next part. Yeah.
and I think another thing that was very important when people want to make their calculations, they use this calculator that is on calculator.rex.io to make maybe some basic, to get a basic idea and to play around a little bit with the actual numbers, share price and so on. And the total shares in the system, you can do some of your calculations. And you also clicked on your Excel sheet that you made, the calculator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can we say that people, if they want to, they could make a copy of that? If they
Yeah, of
go
course.
top left to the file, you just click on
Yep.
file, and then you go to make a copy. And this is
Yep.
what people can do when I think you need a Google account, right?
I don't know if you do need a Google account. I think anyone can make a copy, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
no, you do, you're right, because when it does that, it puts it in your own
Yes,
Gmail, your own Google Drive.
on your drive. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's
everybody can
true.
make a copy for themselves and even expand the tool, make it better, or
I think
change.
you can also download it, which means you can just use it on your desktop, so you don't need a Google account for that.
Ah, okay, perfect. Yeah, that's very useful as well. Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Do you
yeah.
want to say a few sentences about this tool? I
Yeah.
thought there is also something, the actual sheet that we have there is called baseline 10-year, and I can see other sheets on the bottom right.
Yeah, so I have a little story that, I designed to just answer your question about why it is that I prefer the 10-year revocable stakes. The way I always like to approach these things is to just, make calculators that kinda reflect how my brain works. So I was curious, given these choices that we have here for staking and all the different parameters, it kinda seemed like there were quite a few different moving parts, and, if I wanted to just stake 10 years, do I wanna make that revocable, irrevocable? Is it better to have an irrevocable stake, um, that's shorter, uh, or a revocable stake that's longer? How do I make those comparisons? So I built a tool for myself that allows me to at least this is a sort of a back of the envelope thing. It's obviously not rocket science because we don't know we really don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I wanted to create columns for myself for all the parameters that are the moving parts in this scenario. So um, our moving parts are what is the APR, and the APR is determined by your staking duration and whether or not you made your stake with a TREX and whether or not it's revocable or irrevocable. So that's the APR, and that's what this calculator is so great and easy to help get a baseline for. Um, and I just wanted to kind of give myself a sanity check because I kept feeling intuitively that this 10-year revocable was the most flexible and the most lucrative option. So for me, that's what I created as a baseline so I could compare all of the different things with that and to understand how that performs versus some other scenarios. So my baseline is a 10-year revocable stake. And so the parameters that I set at the top, I can set different parameters here if I want to see like a different amount of initial principal or a different initial REX price. This is yesterday's price because I made this yesterday. Um, and I used the share price from yesterday. I might have changed a bit today. 103.47. 103. Nope, it's still the same share price, so that's good. And so you can just enter in to the top of the sheet what your APR is, what your principal is, and the price of REX and the share price. And then you can also enter in here how those how you think those different parameters are going to change with time. And so for my baseline scenario, I was interested, let's say the REX price doesn't go up at all. What's going to happen to my investment? So my REX price appreciation I have set as at 0, and my share price appreciation, though we know the share price is going to go up, that's not a maybe, that's like a for sure. So I just used the share price appreciation that we've already seen, uh, and then I kind of I cheated a little bit and used because I didn't know what's gonna happen to our share price when auctions end, so I used a similar step function for the end of auctions, uh, in my assumptions on my baseline, that at the end of auctions, for which for us is on day 22, share price is gonna go up that
No,
much. Oh, you don't think so?
no, this will not happen because we don't have a big payday programmed in a way that Hex, this example of Hex did it. So that's what they call the big payday right there. And they
Mm.
tokens and blah, 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 blah. So that changed indeed the share rate, and this will not happen in Rex indeed. The share price can rise by ending stakes, which is true. And there will be no such step in Rex. It will be like almost linear all the time, because
Oh.
it is capped to what has been earned from your principal in terms of the duration that you said. So the very first Rex stakes that have ever been created, they will have the best APR when you calculate that to any random point in the future. And so that will be the share price then. It is capped, but anyways, any other staker who will end his stake then will, even if your ending of the stake does a share price rise and it is capped, the next guy who's doing that is rising the share price to what it should be that day. So basically, in Rex, the share price will not have this big step in it, but rise constantly. Just wanted to mention.
Okay.
So you
Oh, well,
can.
actually, if I'm looking now, I somehow that step function got removed anyway, so it's
You,
not it.
you just go on. I just wanted to add this information so you can assume that we don't
Oh,
have.
that's good.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good. So,
you're right.
obviously, this is a big unknown, so everything that I'm saying, you need to take with a grain of salt, and we would need to actually, like, put numbers in that are realistic. So, it looks like you said, I think you said earlier in this call that you thought that maybe the share price would double by 2 years from now? Is that what you said?
Something like that. Yep.
Yeah, I think I might have underestimated the share price increase then, because it looks to me like if I'm looking at my numbers here, this column E here is the share price, and it looks like I've by 2 years from now, it's looking like it's only up to 0.13. So I may have underestimated the share price increase in my models. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. If, the story will be similar, but the details of the breakpoints and the timings might be obviously different if the share price increase assumption is incorrect. I think I've put that 4% everywhere in all of these tabs. Yeah. So, I, um, sorry, point oh 0.04 percent share price appreciation. From what you're saying, it sounds to me like maybe that's a bit low of assumption, so you'd wanna actually put the correct ones in. I won't change it now, though, because I've actually got, I sort of have highlighted rows that would get messed up um, if I change the breakpoints now, but, I'll try and update it to make this a better place for people to start with a more realistic, but let's just say that their share price goes up this slowly, 'cause the basic mechanics will be the same, it's just the timings will be different. So, okay, so what we're looking at in the baseline here is that, we have the date here, so every day, um, uh, I I'm assuming right now that our REX price is not going to change. Obviously, that's extremely conservative. I think the REX price may go down a little bit during the rest of auctions, but is likely to just go up afterwards. So I think this is a quite conservative scenario. I tried to make it realistic but conservative, and that my initial principal stake is just $100 worth of REX, essentially $110. So you put in $110. This is the share price. If you stake that without a TREX, you get this many shares, 36 million. If you stake it with a TREX, you get 45 million shares. So this is the number that we just want to keep in mind. That's how many shares our stake has. And with that many shares and with the TREX and all of that, we get an APR of 46.1%. And I've taken that APR basically from the calculator here. And then I have a column here where I just calculate what percentage of my initial REX my initial stake is earned each day. So as you see, it's growing and growing as time goes on. And then I convert that to how much REX you have that you could withdraw if it's a revocable stake, and then the dollar value of what's revocable. And again, this baseline assumes no change in price. So if we go in time, and we look at this column I here, which is the percentage of initial REX earned, we can go to see at what point will I have exactly as much that I could withdraw 100% of what I put in. Obviously, it's going to be a little more than 2 years if it's 46%. So on 25th of November 2024, we reach 100% of what we put in. And theoretically, at that point, we could withdraw that REX and just kind of basically have our principal back. Clearly, we wouldn't do that, but we might wait a little bit longer, and we might, after it's a little bit more than that, we might pull some profits and then put back in what we need to put in. So I wanted to figure out what point do we need to get to where we could pull everything out and then just put back in and get exactly the same number of shares. So this calculator, on this date, I just found the point, which is around 173% of the initial principal that's come out of. So you wait till past the point where you get to 100% and if you go to 173%, given this share price increase here, it means then if you would pull out, you put in 110, but if you pull out $191 or this many shares, 173,000, with this new share price, that gets you 45,000 shares. So that's what we started with. So this would be taking no profits, but just literally pulling out and then creating a new stake with the same number of shares and starting over. This is a compounding of sorts, because then you have this principal that is not earning any interest, the old principal. So this is a new stake that starts with a principal of $191 and 173 or 1.73 million shares or REX tokens instead of 1 million REX tokens. It takes 1.7 million REX tokens to get the same number of shares because the share price has gone up. But you also have then this dead stake, what people call a dead stake. It's called a dead stake because the principal is still there. You'll still be able to withdraw 1 million REX in 2032, but it's no longer, that stake is no longer earning any interest. But this new stake that you've put in is, I should say rewards, not interest. It's not earning any rewards, but the new stake is earning rewards. So this is kind of just like put to the side. You kind of forget about it. Or in 10 years, you get 1 million REX back out. But in the meantime, it's not earning anything. So now, if you've just literally put back in to get the same amount of shares, then you get to the end of 10 years. You might do that one more time when it again reaches 173%. Did I do that here? Yeah, I did that again. So then you have 2 dead stakes essentially, and at the end of 10 years, you have the 2 dead stakes, which you can end early, or you can just wait longer for them to end naturally. But if you ended everything early, cashed out, and you collect this $219 of rewards on the third stake. So you've now got basically 3 stakes, 2 that are dead and 1 that's active. And at the end of 10 years, if you literally cash everything out, your earnings with no price appreciation at all, your earnings are $853.19 on an initial investment of $110. So that's like a baseline case where there's no profit taking along the way. Let's just look at the 10-year irrevocable stake and to compare it with this baseline 10-year revocable stake that's been compounded. So if you look at the 10-year irrevocable stake, you've got, with the same assumptions, the same share price appreciation. Obviously, that's not even going to come into the calculations here because we're not going to be doing anything with buying or selling shares along the way because it's irrevocable. Now we have our irrevocable max is higher, obviously a higher APR because of the extra shares you get when you stake irrevocably. You can see here that effect there makes our APR higher. And we start with the same initial principal, the same price action, the same share price. All of that is the same, except the only difference is that this is irrevocable. So we don't do anything along the way. And we go all the way down to the end of 10 years. And what do we see? We see our 10-year earnings are $747.87. So already a 10-year revocable stake will make more in 10 years than a 10-year irrevocable stake, even if you've pulled no profits along the way, because of the small amount of compounding that you can do after you reach roughly 170% of your initial principal. Of course, it's going to be more than 170% if our share price increase is faster. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. But let's just have a look at then if we take, instead of our baseline situation where what we did is we waited until we would get exactly the same amount out that we would need to put in. Whoops, that's the wrong line. This line here. So where we pulled out exactly what we would need to put back in order to get the same number of shares. Instead, what if we went longer than that so that we could pull some profit and then put the same amount in with the same amount of shares? So I call that my baseline profit model. So instead of waiting until 170%, we wait until 5 years. So exactly 5 years from now, we are at 230% of our initial principal. We haven't done anything else up until then. What happens is we can pull a profit of $22, which is about 20% of our initial investment, and then we can put in what we need to put in to get the same initial shares, number of shares. So we've got now a dead stake, and we've got some actual money in our pockets after 5 years, and we've got we've got a new stake with the same number of shares that's earning the same APR. And if we do that over 10 years, I forgot if I actually didn't put the profit in here because I wanted to then compare this because in this case, you would be doing this in order to get more money sooner. So in this case, it may not stack up very well against the 10-year profit, but it would give you access to your money sooner, which most people want because who knows what's going to happen with crypto in 10 years. And so then I was interested to see, okay, how does this 10-year revocable stake baseline profit model stack up against a 5-year irrevocable stake? Because if you're going to do this, why not just make a 5-year irrevocable stake? Well, let's have a look. So in this case, we have in 10 years, with a 10-year revocable stake, after 5 years, we've earned this much, $254 dollars and in earnings. If we look at a 5-year irrevocable stake and go down to that same end point, it has earned less than our 10-year revocable stake after 5 years. So you could even think about not only just the rewards themselves, but you could think about the if you added into this rewards amount half of the principal, if instead of having your stake be dead, you would just end your stake. You would then also you'd have penalties, but you would have half of the principal that you could cash out on as well after 5 years. So even comparing a 10-year revocable stake after 5 years with the 5-year irrevocable stake, the 10-year revocable stake wins hands down. So this was interesting, and it's kind of the baseline story, but then it gets even more interesting. So then I'm like, okay, well, what happens if instead of assuming a 0 price appreciation, what happens if we do the same scenarios, but where the price is going up just by 0.5% every day? So what that looks like in practice is the price is going up, and it kind of seems slow at first, but by 5 years from now, we are at 1 penny, or sorry, at $1, because I thought it doesn't feel like $1 is a lot. For it to go up to $1 in 5 years, that's a kind of I think a very optimistic scenario. It's not unrealistic, but it's quite optimistic. But I capped it there because I felt like um to have it keep increasing, like it would got us to a REX price of like $10,000, which seemed in 10 years, which it could happen, but like I don't know. That just seemed a bit outside of the possibility. So what I did in this scenario for the price increase is up until a year from now, it's increasing by whatever point. What did I say? 0.5% per day. But then it gets capped at $1. So it's all fiction. And the reason why I like to build these calculators, because I can try out any fiction I want. So this is what it looks like, though, in this fictional scenario where price in the first 5 years is going up by 0.5% a day, and then it gets capped. So the baseline scenario where we just wait until 170% and put it back in. What happens then is we have the profit that we get to take, that we still don't take any profit. But at the end, what we've made in 10 years is $7.7 million. And the equivalent irrevocable scenario is only 6 million. So the difference is again just about $1 million between the revocable and the irrevocable. So it's kind of the same percentage difference. But then where it gets super interesting is in this baseline profit model, where we wait 5 years. And in 5 years, what we can do, where's my 5-year mark? There it is. So in 5 years, if price has gone up, then we're looking at, like, on an initial investment of $110, we're looking at being able to pull a profit of 200,000. So there's your car, whatever car you might want to buy in 5 years. You could buy a car and put back in a new stake that would have exactly the same number of shares that you had before. So when we look at price appreciation, which the tokenomics of REX is designed to achieve, I don't know if it's going to achieve 0.5% a day growth, but if it did, and REX went to $1 in 5 years, on a $110 stake, you'd be looking at a profit, if you made it 10-year revocable, of $203,000 in 10 years without any loss of shares, because you could turn right around with the rest of that, with the rest of this 2.3 million shares, and put them back in. Obviously, again, the date of this might change, the amounts would change if the share price is increasing more. But in this scenario, the share price has gone up to 0.2, like it's doubled in 5 years rather than doubling in 2 years, like what you said, Thomas. So obviously, this is variable depending on how the share price performs. And then if we compare again, so the last thing is if we look then at what would our profit be. So if instead of just pulling out only the profits and putting back in the rest, restaking the rest, if we sold the whole thing, half of the half of the principal and the whole and all of the rewards, our profits after 5 years are $2.782 million, assuming you're done with REX. You didn't want to put any more in, and you just wanted to walk away with your earnings. That's what you'd be looking at if we have that much price appreciation. So let's assume that the price appreciation is 10% of that. That's still an amazing profit on a very modest initial investment after 5 years with a 10-year revocable stake. If we look at the 5-year irrevocable stake in that same price increase scenario, the earnings are $2 million, which still is not shabby, but you can compare $2 million against $2.782 million. That's just an extra cool $780,000 that you make with a 10-year revocable stake strategy. So
wow.
this is the long answer to the question you asked me in that AMA, like, why do you do that? This is why I do that, because I think if you take a long view and you look at the long view compounding possibilities with a 10-year revocable stake, this is what you end up with.
Okay, that was really interesting and really impressive and really enlightening. I really enjoyed that. I hope all the viewers can easily understand that. I think it was very understandable from my perspective. So I hope everybody understood that. If not, we will all have the chance. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Kelly. That was really, really good to see that. You will all have the possibility to meet all of us, Kelly and me and all the other Rexicans, and there are a lot of bright guys, right? In our community channels, in our Discord, of course, on Telegram, and you are all invited to meet us on Twitter Spaces right now. So we will now share a link for all of you. So if you want to join, just meet us on Twitter. And yeah, see you there. Thank you so much again for all the explanations, Kelly. I think we covered most of the things. I think if people have questions, they can write comments or just get in contact with us, so we can maybe at some point in the future make another video. We can still talk about this open thing with the share price development in the future. So we should absolutely add that into your Excel sheet as well. Because it's quite predetermined how that will play out. So we should absolutely put that in there. So thank you everybody for watching our today's talk. We hope it was very interesting and it helps you creating your personal staking strategy. As you could see, Rex comes up with a lot of features, possibilities, and possible strategies. So we're quite sure that you will find yours. Yeah, what can I say? Please consider all of our talks and as our opinions and views. We're not financial advisors, so this is not financial advice.
Thank you for
I
saying
think
that.
it's always important to mention that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's all meet. Do you want to say something, Kelly?
Well, I thought we might just invite my sister, who might be standing by, to see if she would like to join the conversation and see if she has any questions of what we've talked about or things that we might have forgotten to mention.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hello. I don't really have any specific questions. It's all very interesting, Kelly, and I like seeing how your mind thinks. But I don't think I have anything specific or anything more to share.
Do you have any other staking strategies that you like to use or that you've been working on when thinking about how to invest?
No, but I, like you, have gravitated to almost exclusively doing 10-year revocable stakes. Just seems like it offers the most flexibility. It's interesting seeing the numbers reflecting that sort of intuitive thing in very literal ways. So thanks for taking the time to put those together. But I don't have anything more. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's nice to have you here.
Thanks. It's good to be here. Thanks for taking the time to explain all of this too. It's helpful.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, maybe we will find somebody on Twitter in a few minutes and for explaining their strategies, so we can discuss all of that. Rebecca, Kelly, thank you very much for having me. May I say that? And for the talks, I found it very interesting. I hope it helps. And thank you everybody for being here, for being into Rex, of course. And
Thank you,
yeah.
MREX, for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you, MREX. I forgot to mention you the last talks, so double from my side. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, perfect. So see you on Twitter. Have a great day, everybody, wherever you are.